So, Carla, tell me, does the fact that all of the Republican, well, almost all of them, candidates for president are here signal that California really will make a difference in this primary coming up?
California is the mother lode, not only political donations, but of delegates, 172 big ones in this race. And that is what brought Mitt Romney here in the last week, Rick Santorum here, Ron Paul coming here next week. As long as this contest goes on, as long as it's so contentious, more and more the possibility becomes that California could be the one that puts Romney over the top, and it's looking like that's what's going to happen. Romney's amassing all kinds of big endorsements. He got Kevin McCarthy this week, the GOP whip, Carly Fiorina. Meg Whitman gave him a big fundraiser in Redwood City. I mean, it looks to be going his way. But I tell you, I also was there at the Jelly Belly factory in Fairfield, where Rick Santorum looked very defiant this week, channeling Ronald Reagan, surrounded by hundreds of conservatives, and said, "I am not giving up. We're taking this all the way to the convention floor." He seems pretty adamant about that. Whether or not that's going to happen, it's certainly California is the place where they've got to pick up the campaign money, and they're looking for a share of those 172 delegates because it's by congressional district, winner take all by congressional district.
Well, they're dividing their time though between here and Los Angeles. And David, you have a question down here.
Yeah, Carla, I mean, I know why the Republican candidates are coming here, because there's a big pile of money waiting for them. But what do California Republicans want in return? Do they have a wish list that they're hoping to send to Washington?
Well, you know, California Republicans, David, I mean, this is one of the things we saw this week. The California Republican Party is in flux, and we saw that with the defection of Nathan Fletcher this week, the San Diego mayoral candidate, one of the party's rising stars, a California assemblyman who defected this week and said he's going to be an independent. That's a blow to the party. That just shows what do Republicans want. It's pretty unclear right now. They're down 13 points in registration to the Democrats. At this point, the party needs money, it needs bodies, and yet it is losing some of its brightest stars, like Nathan Fletcher. That leaves the Republican Party's future in California, I think, in doubt.
Well, I'm really surprised about this because the whole idea of open primary was to make both parties more moderate. And yet, that's not what's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're right, Michelle. This is, I think, the concern among moderates and those who hope to see the Republican Party rebound. The Republican primary in June will only be open to Republican registered voters, not to independent voters, unlike the Democratic primary. That means the more conservative factions in that party are going to be voting for president. And that's where Rick Santorum, Ron Paul may have a chance to pick up some of those delegates that might go to Romney. We'll have to see about that. But the fact is, you know, the whole profile of the Republican Party and the activist base is more and more conservative in California.
David?
Carla, you said that you were at the Jelly Belly factory with Santorum earlier when he was there, and he was certainly touting his conservative bona fides when he was there. Is that really resonating here in the Golden State? Do Republicans here think that he is the conservative messiah, or are they having their doubts?
Well, you know, the latest poll, and we tried to ask David Santorum this question, the latest poll shows him down 20 points to Mitt Romney in California. But the fact is, it's very clear Romney does not have the passion of a lot of these Republican voters. We saw it in talking to the people there who showed up at the Jelly Belly factory. We've seen it for months now. More and more, Romney has been defined himself as a wealthy candidate. This week, it came out the plans for the expansion of his $10 million La Jolla beachfront house, which includes elevators for the cars. I mean, this is the kind of thing that a Republican candidate has to worry about.
And the whole Etch-a-Sketch.
You say that as if the rest of the 99% doesn't have that.
That's right.
What?
And Michelle just raised the Etch-a-Sketch,
which is
the Etch-a-Sketch issue for Mitt Romney, which is the nightmare branding of this candidate. Santorum this week held up the Etch-a-Sketch to great applause at his rally.
For people who don't know,
Yeah.
one of his Romney's aides said that after the end of the primaries, you shake the campaign and then you start anew, making people think that he's not a real substantive person.
And this is becoming the brand for Mitt Romney. It's one of the reasons why he's going to continue to have challenges here. Will he get the lion's share of the delegates in California? It's expected that he will, no question about it. The fact is that Etch-a-Sketch image is going to be used by other Republicans and Democrats as he goes forward. That's his problem.
But one thing I wonder about it is during Obama's primary race with Clinton, the argument is that she made him better. And what I want to know is, do you think that Santorum or Newt Gingrich, are they making Romney better?
I think there's no question from the 2008 race when Romney only won 4 congressional districts in California. You can say Romney is a much better candidate than he was the last time around.
Let's move to a Democratic issue, and we talked about that at the beginning. We have a confession in terms of mishandling campaign funds. Explain a bit.
We have to mention the case of Kendi Durkee, which is being described as the largest political embezzlement case in history. She pled guilty this week to 5 charges of mail fraud. The FBI has been after her. This is a woman who managed, as a campaign treasurer, dozens of prominent campaigns, including Dianne Feinstein, who's estimated to have lost $5 million in the embezzlement. Why this went on for years, I think it's still a mystery. We did a story back in 2004 that linked Kendi Durkee to a phony campaign committee for Barack Obama. It was unauthorized. She was raising money, and yet it took this long. It's a sad case. A lot of campaigns have been wiped out, and Feinstein is, of course, suing Kendi Durkee still, but the fact is we saw some kind of closure. We have yet to see what kind of sentence she's going to get in this case.
Well, we had a little miracle of another kind in Washington, D.C., where a bill called the Jobs Bill actually passed with bipartisan support. What happened, and what is this bill?
Well, it is a bill that's going to Obama's desk, we think as early as this week, and it basically relaxes regulation so that startups can get more money, or money earlier in their growth. There's 6 parts of this bill, and Obama came up with some of the ideas in the State of the Union. Eric Cantor grabbed 6 bills in the House and called it the Jobs Act, and the Senate passed it last week, and now it's going to Obama. And it is a miracle. I think it's because of the time in our country. There's still an issue about the unemployment. And if you can pass something that doesn't cost the government any money, like, it's not like using TARP money. It's just tweaking the regulations of the securities regulations so that more money can go to startups.
Michelle, you mentioned startups. That's the focus of this, and of course, Silicon Valley. This is ground zero for startups.
Exactly.
But one of the concerns about this bill was that it might open the door to fraud. That by relaxing the regulations, allowing people to come in on startups, that it could open the door to hucksters raising money on the internet and so forth. What's the controls on that?
Well, it's a great point. And the thing that was sort of amazing was that just a few days before the Senate voted, Mary Shapiro, who's the SEC chairwoman, wrote a letter to the Senate saying, don't do this. Don't do this, and here's all the reasons why you shouldn't do this. And they went ahead and did it. And her concern was there's not sufficient controls. There's one aspect that was subbed out the last moment that has controls. And it's this idea of crowdfunding, where you come up with an idea and you put a sign up on the internet saying, everybody send me money for my idea, and you all get a stake in my business. Before this bill, you weren't allowed to do that, and now you can. So the idea is that lots and lots of seeds will be fostered.
Or David knows a little bit about seeds that are planted sometimes that aren't fruitful. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this Jobs Bill from your point of view?
Yeah.
Well, Michelle, I've got a question. When we say startup, we think Facebook, Twitter, or God forbid, pets.com. But, Silicon Valley isn't really hurting for money, and good ideas tend to have to fend off the venture capitalists. So is this Jobs Act primarily targeted at tech or biotech or biopharmaceuticals, or is this something that's going to be going towards construction, startups, food, restaurants, cafes? Where are we going to see the money going?
A really good question. I mean, I think that one aspect, this crowdfunding, is going to be, you'll see it all over the U.S. It's going to be anybody who can think of an idea, use the power of the internet and social media, and get people to, invest. So that's a broad one. The one other aspect is the whole IPO on-ramp, and that directly hits Silicon Valley, which is if you can get companies going public earlier than they would have, or make it easier, then they would. Then the idea is that they'll create more jobs. That most of the job growth of
Michelle,
companies.
you should tell people what crowdfunding is, because this is a really interesting idea.
Well, this is the idea of you put a poster, you put something up on the internet, and you say, everybody give me $10 and I will start the newest Pez dispenser business. Yeah. And everybody does, and everybody gets a stake in it. So if I go public, all my shareholders will get money. That is not legal today. This bill will make it legal. And there'll be the changes that they made in the bill the last minute would mean that there's brokers who facilitate these trades, and they're SEC regulated. So I might start a matchmaking website, and so that's one aspect, and that could have a great effect across the country. Probably not as much here for what David said, which is it's really about we have money here for those. Tech startups.
Who's going to oversee this? I mean, this seems like an invitation.
Well, the SEC apparently this week said, we need a lot more time than's given. Once Obama signs this, we need more than 90 days to make this happen. This is massive changes. So I don't know. It's going to fall on the SEC, and
we already know they're sort of overburdened.
Right. Exactly.
Anyway. So at this point.
Any estimates of how many jobs might come out of this?
No, there's none. So the question is, what's the accountability on this? There's just a general sense that, well, yeah, there'll be more fraud, but there's always more fraud when you tweak regulations. And there's a sense there'll be more jobs. And I don't know, I assume that people will measure it.
This got more support from Republicans than Democrats?
Republicans almost unilaterally supported it. Democrats were a bit of the holdout near the end. But the problem was that Obama had already signaled that he was going for it, and so too did the party.